Hey gang, Dr. Mitch here. We're going to wrap up the last of the opiate lecture. Here's a sample item. Much better. Who fought the Opium Wars? Was it the United States, the United Arab Emirates, or the United Kingdom? Indeed, the United Kingdom. And who first isolated morphine? Was it Sir Turner, Sir Rosas, or Hoffman? And as you guys know, it's Sir Turner. Hoffman was the LSD guy. Cirrhosis is an old Bugs Bunny joke, cirrhosis of liver. And if you can find a link to that Bugs Bunny cartoon, I post it below here, and I will give you an extra point. I'm dying to find that. That was my favorite Bugs Bunny. So back to acute effects. So yes, euphoria, drowsiness, body warmth, heavy limbs. All right, pretty standard sedation, but with this happy part that say, oh, the GABAergic anxiolytics don't produce. Opiate abusers like these effects. Not everyone does. So many a person has that opium reaction that's all about the nausea. I've been in group therapy where somebody said, I did it and I just threw up, and everybody else said, oh, I wish I'd thrown up. But you know, there's a subset of the D2 receptor, it looks like, makes it so you don't enjoy them so much. You guys are going to find out sooner or later. I've got opiate addicts in the family. I did get Vicodin for some knee surgery and realized, oh my God, this makes you happy. I got to stay away. So yeah, everybody's different. Reduced sexual interest in men and women, impotence in men. This drug is not for enhanced sexual function, at least at high doses. And it's ironic because apparently early on in that addiction process, the impotence isn't so bad, but then the more experienced junkies apparently laugh at you. Impaired social interaction. Well, you're really sedated, not necessarily even nodding out, but you've got a unique source for all your positive affect. Do you really need to interact with people? And then you're so sedated, you know, it's just, who wants to go out when you can go home and be as happy as possible? But this is the beginning of the addictive process when you start basically isolating yourself. All your other friends are opiate addicts too. Things go downhill quickly. Vivid dream-like experiences. This is how we got the expression pipe dreams. This is more for the rapid onset modes of administration, so injection and smoking. The orally administered prescription opiates, whether they're prescribed or not, don't seem to create the same kind of dreamy quality, but that is how morphine was named. Back then, too, if you invented a new drug like that, you tried it on yourself. So Sir Turner did basically shoot himself up with that, and that's how he got the name. More acute effects. Well, the cognitive impairment is there, and nobody really talks about it that much, but you definitely see slower learning and short-term memory impairments, even at relatively low doses. And methadone maintenance clients claim this can, last, even though they're on methadone now. It's still an opiate, so they don't seem to spring back or absorb information like they used to. There's definitely recovery in as little as 30 days after getting clean. Some cognitive enhancements, reports of improvement, better reaction time even, definitely better short-term memory. So respiration depression and lowered body temperature, so the number of breaths per minute is slowed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and that may be, in a sense, some of the source of the decreased anxiety. But hey, you could slow your breath down right now and feel better, so by all means, sidestep the opiate and just take some nice deep breaths. The problem is that respiratory center in the brain is altered, and at high doses it basically slows to the point of stopping. That's going to wreck your whole afternoon. Nausea, vomiting, pinpoint pupils. So the nausea at high doses is apparently there for most everybody, and you're definitely going to see that. This pinpoint pupil, so we're accustomed to arousal being in this big dilation, like your eyes are opening up wide, like we saw with the stimulants and the hallucinogens, but these are pinpointed in relation to some of the sedation effects. So I wanted to draw the parallels between withdrawal and administration. Basically, withdrawal is literally the opposite of the acute effects, which was in some ways how we started coming up with what to look for condition tolerance. So administration decreases body temperature, the withdrawal has an increased body temperature. And basically you're going to see the opposite of each of these for the withdrawal. Your body is essentially responding to the cues for the drug by saying, let's go in the opposite direction so this drug doesn't have such a big impact on us. That's basically how the condition tolerance develops. This drying of secretions, and you'll see a runny nose withdrawal. I was walking around with my brother in LA. We saw this old junkie girl, and suddenly he just had a runny nose. Like it's startling how that can be conditioned so rapidly. And then the constipation I've been ranting about, so the withdrawal, of course, is the opposite, and then basically get the runs. This is strange because the respiratory depression is there, and you see this yawning in the withdrawal effect, almost as if your brain is trying to get a little extra oxygen, and then increased sensitivity to pain and a lot of depression and anxiety counter to the euphoria. Here it is the cues for the drug essentially creating the opposite effect again. This led to an intriguing approach to the treatment. So the take-home message on this is that we've got a cue exposure approach to the treatment where essentially go ahead and, if you're an IV drug user for these opiates, get your works out, go ahead and light some fire under a spoon, like really have all those cues, and you're definitely going to experience the craving. All right, sorry guys, blame the chair philosophy for that one. And if you're in Logic right now, yeah, it's going to be better because of me. Anyway, bottom line is exposure to the cues without the drug will essentially help that extinguish. So you'll lower the tolerance, but you'll also lower the withdrawal symptoms. So it's odd how, something that's making you tearing or runny nosed after the 11th and 12th exposure, you're not going to experience in the same way. And more importantly, that craving dies down. So if you are in a predicament where, you do see the cues, it's really hard to turn it down if you can't even get your head together. But if you've seen them 100 times beforehand and kind of diminish that withdrawal response, you got a chance to really recover. I do want to talk about the spontaneous orgasm thing just because it's such a strange effect. But basically, you've got decreased sex drive in response to the drug. So this kind of hypersexual spontaneous ejaculation wet dream thing. And if you don't let people know ahead of time, when they go into withdrawal, they don't understand what's going on. And so I know it's not anybody's favorite topic, but it's just something to know about ahead of time. All right, in contrast, the chronic effects are basically just this need for a steadily increasing dose. It's unfortunate, but the euphoric effects develop tolerance really rapidly, even acutely. So just doing one injection and then another injection the same day isn't as good. And that's your body just really trying to adjust. And unfortunately, the analgesic effects as well. We see tolerance pretty rapidly. If you start low and go slow, right? If you are on an analgesic opiate and you start with a half dose and see if that's actually enough to get the pain relief, count your blessings and use the smaller doses as long as you can. Withdrawal, motivation for use switches from positive to negative reinforcement. That's a fancy way of saying now you've got to use it just to get well, right? You're going to have to use an opiate just to feel normal because the withdrawal is so bad. So yeah, it's a negative reinforcement paradigm in the sense that you're avoiding something aversive, in this case withdrawal, by using the substance. All right, so what's the deal with the withdrawal symptoms? Well, everybody's different, obviously. It depends on how you grew up, but also how high were your doses and how frequent was your use and what was the duration. But certainly in 12 hours, you're going to see some genuine tremor, irritability, sweats. And then by day 2 and 3, this pupil dilation, anorexia, and piloerection. I just want to know that word because it sounds so funny like an erection, but it's literally goosebumps. So the hair on your arm is erect. These are, good terms to know and good things to recognize. Sometimes you don't realize you're in it. So if you've been on a prescription opiate and then you think, what's going on? I'm all sweaty and I feel funny. a lot of times it is that. When my grandma was on the fentanyl, they'd say, "Man, she's really a bitch today," and I was like, "Yeah, she needs a new fentanyl patch. Like, give her a break here. This is really rough." So anyway, with a name like piloerection, I'm going to put that on the exam. Treating withdrawal. So the no treatment, literally cold turkey or kicking the habit. Well, where these come from? When your skin looks, because of piloerection, like you've got a turkey skin, that was where that expression came up. And kicking the habit, basically, if you've got a drug that's going to relax your muscles, it's going to lead to muscles contracting spontaneously in these weird ways when you're in withdrawal. And that kicking was from the unconscious muscle twitches associated with withdrawal. So any opiate drug will create these detoxification with methadone. This really does help, and at least at low doses does not create a subjective high. So I suggest that those data are actually pretty good, and it's worth doing. High risk for relapse, 90% within 6 months, especially when returning to the same environment. You really need, I hate to say it, like a good therapeutic relationship and a good way to build a multifaceted life to make this stuff work. It's troublesome, and we'll talk about when we do the treatment section. I did want to spend a minute on treating pain, simply because the behavioral interventions for pain and some of the other physical ones are worth knowing, in part to keep your own opiate consumption down, help people who are on opiate drugs understand that there are other ways to do this. And again, these are not, it's not as good as feeling high from opium, but they really do the trick. So all the relaxation, hypnosis, meditation data, it's a concerted effort, right? If something hurts really badly, you're not going to meditate for 90 seconds and have it feel better. You got to put some effort in. It's like cooking rice, as the meditation teachers say, right? Like, you don't expect rice to become instantly cooked because you threw it in hot water. You got to let it boil a little while. Well, same deal here. Put that effort in. The hypnosis is pretty startling, and actually there were some naloxone and hypnosis-induced pain studies that suggest it's probably working through the same mechanism. If you're not necessarily hypnotizable, that's something that you can develop, and that especially you'll be motivated on this. It's worth getting into. There's tons of stuff just on the internet for free. I would encourage you to start there rather than starting to pay for things. And then relaxation. Stress increases pain. Stress lowers the pain threshold. Those pain-related neurons, especially the pressure ones, seem to fire a lot easier if you're already wound up or the muscles around are flexed. Exercise and stretching. So I've got a lot of medical cannabis users who are claiming, at least, that they're motivated by pain, but are you willing to stretch your back every morning, even if it's not stiff or doesn't hurt at the time? And that makes a big difference. My dad had some surgery on his hand and is struggling with some of the same things. He can't do the exercises in part. Alternatively, extremes in temperature. These data are pretty compelling, but everybody's different, and even the same person with different sources of pain are different. But heating pad is pretty astounding, particularly if you can tighten something. So like if you've got a pain in the foot and you've got a really tight sock or a wraparound thing and it's warm, that seems to help a lot. The extremes on cold as well. Obviously, that's going to keep inflammation down. Not necessarily the thing you want to do in the middle of the winter, but give temperature an opportunity here. What's the deal with sleep? Well, first of all, pain wakes you up, and you're more sensitive to pain if you're sleep deprived. So emphasize sleep hygiene in the past, but also the placement of your sleep in the day. So making sure that you, if you're trying to shoot for sleeping through the night, that you're not taking a big old nap at 2 in the afternoon and things like that. You'll be glad you did. I know I've talked about sleep hygiene before. If not, it'll be in the over-the-counter meds. And then posture. This is odd, but truth be told, a lot of back pain stems from bad posture. And I know there are these new gizmos out to just remind you to stand up straight. But particularly if you're on your feet for your job, having some way to remind yourself to stand up straight is time well spent, because you're going to decrease that lower back pain and that pain between the shoulder blades. And then some of the alternative meds. We talked about analgesics, and we'll talk about them some more when we do over-the-counter. But odds are high, naproxen sodium, aspirin, some of the NSAIDs, things like that, can actually treat pain, even though they don't create that euphoric effect. And it's funny how we kind of pair those. Oh, it's the euphoria, therefore I don't have any pain. A ton of anti-inflammatory plants, so turmeric, ginger, garlic, at high doses can actually decrease pain indirectly because they're decreasing the relevant inflammation. Email me. I've got a treatment manual for this. I can walk you through how to do it. And then what to do in an overdose. So I'm not saying you guys got to carry Narcan around or anything, even though I probably have some in my bag right now. If somebody is ODing on opiates, so this is literally a matter of life and death. So you can get the nasal spray of naloxone called Narcan and just go up and spray it right up their nose. And I realize that sounds super weird, but in truth be told, like if their blood isn't pounding, right? If their heart's not beating, there's no other way to really get it in them. And it's not like they're going to swallow it and digest it and everything. Like you got to get it there. So good thing to know. And I'm glad to see that physicians are more willing to prescribe this. If you just mention, hey, look, I got an opiate abuser in the family, I'm not going to abuse this. This isn't fun at all. In fact, it takes the buzz off of alcohol, some new data suggest. But nevertheless, if you catch somebody, they're looking very sleepy, irregular breathing, or really low, slow breathing, a slow pulse, or if they vomit and kind of pass out and have small pupils, this is literally a matter of life and death. And I had a student who worked behind a lot of this, trying to make this more accessible, and I'm glad to say in New York it is. Not everybody is this lucky, and it doesn't encourage more use, or doesn't teach anybody a lesson to OD and die. Okay, let's kind of keep that. We're all trying our best. Let's make the situational retribution for anybody who's strung out on the opiates. So there are tons of resources. I don't want to drive you guys nuts on it. The NIDA on heroin, what a surprise, is a little alarmist. If you want to see how the Portuguese have handled it, it's pretty intriguing that they have the methadone ban and things like that. But it's not like they just legalized it and did nothing else. They provided health services instead of a prison term for those folks, and it goes a lot better. So I know this was supposed to actually be 2 hours of lecture, but we got a lot of material covered. I know it went kind of fast. Take your time going through it again. I will post the link to the Kahoot questions. I'll have the crossword puzzle up on Blackboard by the time this is posted. Thanks so much for hanging tough. Email me if you have any questions. Have a good one.